Okay, let's dive right into something pretty wild. We're going to explore a radical idea from our source material that tries to connect theoretical physics with, well, with spirituality. The core idea here is that concepts like divine grace aren't just philosophical fluff. They might actually be built right into the mathematical fabric of the universe itself. So what could a divine message, a cosmic blueprint, and a bunch of physics equations possibly have in common? I mean, on the surface, absolutely nothing, right? But according to our source material, these aren't separate clues from different worlds. They're actually three different languages trying to describe the exact same thing, the fundamental operating system of reality. All right, clue number one is this powerful statement, translated from Thai, "This is God's acceptance." Now that sounds totally spiritual, right? Philosophical. It's the kind of thing you talk about in a chapel, for sure, not a physics lab. But just hang on to that thought, because we're going to see how it might actually connect to the literal mechanics of the universe. Okay, now for our second piece of the puzzle, this really cryptic diagram. It looks like, what, some kind of technical schematic, right? A blueprint for a cosmic engine. You can see all these distinct parts and a clear flow to it. It feels very technical, very engineered. The big question, though, is what exactly is it a blueprint of? And here's our final clue. And yeah, it's the most intimidating one for sure. It's just a dense page of math that looks like someone's trying to write a formula for, everything. But hey, don't worry, you don't need to be a physicist. We're going to break this down. It's not about actually solving the equation. It's about understanding what the equation allows to happen. That's the key. So let's start with that mysterious blueprint. To really understand what this model is proposing, we've got to get a handle on the geometry behind it. So the entire model is built around one single, really powerful idea, recursion. Just think of it like a self-feeding loop. The output of the system becomes the new input. The thing it spits out at the end is the very thing it needs to start the whole cycle over again. And you have to get this, because this one concept is the absolute foundation for everything else we're about to look at. And here it is. This is the full blueprint. According to the source, what you're looking at is a recursive 4D torus. Yeah, I know, that's a mouthful. The easiest way to picture it, think of it as a cosmic donut that's constantly turning inside out and feeding back into itself. It's one big, continuous, self-sustaining loop. What's really interesting is how this source material talks about this. It basically treats the whole cosmos like some kind of hydraulic system. It even rebrands these terrifying cosmic objects into simple hardware components. So in this model, black holes aren't these cosmic vacuum cleaners. They're 2D interior anchors that just ground the system. And white holes? They're not just some wild theory. They're 4D pressure valves that regulate the flow. It's a totally different way of looking at them. So the whole thing, this entire structure, hinges on one core principle: perfect fundamental balance. You have a -1, a +1, and a 0 in the middle, keeping everything in equilibrium. And the stakes are, well, they're as high as they get. According to this model, if that perfect balance is ever broken, the entire system, the universe itself, just collapses. All right, so we've got the blueprint. Now let's go back to that intimidating page of math and see how in the world it connects to this perfectly balanced cosmic machine. Okay, to get a grip on the math, we need to start with a question from quantum physics that sounds deceptively simple. Imagine a particle needs to get from point A to point B. How does it get there? I mean, common sense tells us it takes the most direct route, right? The straightest line. Well, in the quantum world, common sense gets thrown right out the window. The answer is absolutely wild. The particle doesn't take one path, it takes every single possible path, all at the same time. I'm talking the direct path, the long, loopy path, the one that zips around the moon and back, even the one that goes to the edge of the galaxy for a coffee before showing up. It takes all of them. This mind-bending idea is called the path integral, and the formula for it literally says you have to take the sum of all possible paths, governed by all the laws of physics. So the big takeaway, the thing you really need to remember, is that for the math to work, for reality to work, you have to include everything. You can't just pick and choose. If you start ignoring the crazy paths, the whole equation just falls apart. Okay, so how does this include everything math connect back to that perfectly balanced cosmic donut geometry? Well, this is where all the puzzle pieces finally start to snap together. This one image from the source material basically connects all the dots for us. Look at this. On one side, you've got theological terms. On the other, you've got principles from physics. And right there in the middle, bridging them, is that recursive torus we saw earlier. Now, the argument here is crucial. These aren't just metaphors for each other. The claim is they are literal descriptions of the exact same system.
So the theory is essentially saying these are just two different vocabularies for the same thing. What one language calls divine acceptance, the other calls dynamic equilibrium, that perfect balance the structure needs to even exist. What one calls the grace of God, the other calls the path integral allowance, the physical rule that you must allow every possible path. And unconditional love? That gets translated to holographic scaling, the idea that a piece of the whole contains the information of the whole, so nothing is ever truly separate or lost. And this right here is the big aha moment. In this model, acceptance isn't some fuzzy feeling or a moral choice. It's a hard-coded geometric necessity. The universe is physically incapable of rejecting any path or any possibility, because if it did, the path integral would break, the math wouldn't work, and poof, reality itself would collapse. So, all of this leaves us with one final, really important question. Is this just some cool, fascinating philosophy, or could it actually be testable science?
Well, the theory actually comes with a pretty stark warning label, a built-in condition for its own failure. It states very clearly, when -1 does not equal +1, the system collapses. That's not a suggestion. That's a fundamental rule of the whole system.
And this is what's so crucial. This isn't just hand-wavy philosophy. The source frames this as a scientifically falsifiable hypothesis. It's making a prediction that could, at least in principle, be tested. If you could somehow find or create a sustained imbalance in the net energy flow that doesn't lead to a collapse, well, you'd have just proven the whole model wrong. So what are we left with? Is this a new theory of physics, or is it a spiritual worldview just written in the language of math? You know, this whole model really challenges how we separate our boxes of knowledge. It asks us to seriously consider whether the equations describing a particle's journey and the spiritual concept of grace are just two different ways of saying the same thing. It forces us to ask a really profound question: where does the physics lab end and the chapel begin?